Welcome Stephanie Warrington. She obtained her MBA and MHA, which is Master of Health Administration degree at University of Florida. She has 20 years in healthcare industry. After several years at traditional companies like Humana, Florida Blue, and London, she began a journey to become an entrepreneur. She was founded president of True Motion Spine and previously a co-founder of VP Corporate Development for Exhale and its spin-off of High Green. She has co-founded 7 medical technology startups since 2004 to commercialize a range of disruptive healthcare applications. She also serves as chairman of the board for BioFlorida. She seems like a very cool person. Stephanie Warrington. Thank you. Mike, can you please put up the slides? She has, okay.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today, and I'm following Sue Washer, a good friend of mine, so I hope you learned from her. She helped me with one of my pitches in the past. Okay. So I'm not going to talk about really presentations at all. I'm just going to talk about the experiences that I've had in starting medical device companies. I think we may have a lot in common. A lot of these companies were university technologies that we started with just, a patent and a professor. Oh, okay. I didn't want to blow your ears out. Okay. Is that better? Blow your ears out. Okay. Great. Back in 1998, we moved back to the Gainesville, Florida area where I am from London. And we had moved to London for my husband's job. And when we moved back, it turns out my career in managed care was highly disrupted. That's one of those careers you're on the escalator, and if you stay in there, it's great. Once you step out, it's hard to get back in. Also, we started our family. And so by 2001, when I was ready to go back to the job market there in Gainesville, Florida as an MBA, there wasn't a lot to choose from. I ended up working part-time for a professor at the University of Florida who had a large multi-center grant in neurotechnology. And I was this program manager, fairly easy job for me. And he had a patent. And he would come to me and he said, my patent has issued, I want a company. And so I thought, well, I'm an MBA, I can figure that out. And I started working with the tech transfer office, and they would bring in these entrepreneurs, and they would ask great questions about this technology. How is it used? What's its market? How does it work? They knew all the questions, and I just thought, they're pretty smart. I'd like to do that when I grow up. So I just got more and more involved in that process, ended up working in the tech transfer office where I met Elizabeth. She worked there as well at the time. And, from there, I saw a company forming. I was only there a few months. And I went out with that company. I said, I want to work with you. I want to know what this experience is of the startup company. So, really similar to what you guys are looking at. And that company failed. And, which is fine. A lot of them do. But through that, I met Jamie Grooms and Richard Allen. They are the co-founders of Regeneration RTI Surgical, it's called now. It's a publicly traded company, also a University of Florida spin-out. But they had exited that company. This is back in 2003, 2004. And they had started a little private equity group called Synogen. And their intent was to invest in more startup companies. So I joined them, and the first company they started was Axogen, which was Jamie's focus, and is now a publicly traded company. You may have heard of it. And then the first company I got involved in was OrthoHelix, and between 2004 and 2005, we started all these companies, and I'll get into what each company does in a minute. I find them all fascinating, obviously, and I got very close to the technologies and the people. But during that time of starting all those companies at once, I also put in place an incubator, because we had so many companies that kind of needed the same services and the same processes and infrastructure. So we also created the Downtown Technology Center there in Gainesville, Florida. And it was fun days. It was all startups. Everyone was brilliant that was involved with them. You've got scientists, engineers, doctors, and as the business people, Richard Allen and I brought, the business part of it. And as the business people, we were very much interpreters among all those specialties to bring a plan together for each of these companies. So what we did, this was our model. We'd meet a professor, or he would find us, and they were all hens. But there were plenty of females involved in all aspects of these companies, but most of the inventors were male. But they would come to us, we would bring the business, they would bring the science, we would each trust that the other knew their part of the business, and we knew our part of the business. And we would split up the equity. We co-founded the companies. We'd split up the equity so everyone was motivated to stick with it and make it work. And then, the first few months and the seed of it is a lot like what you're doing now. It's packaging it up to get that seed funding and just to say, here's the market for this thing, here's the plan for this thing. And our role was really the 0 to Series A. And once we got the company funded at Series A, it would have enough money and a plan to attract a CEO and a management team, and then they were on their own, and we would step out or be on the board. So that's kind of what happened with most of the companies, except for Exhale. Richard and I ended up focusing on that one primarily, and Exhale moved out and built a building in 2009, right after we had our spin out High Green. And so I was with Exhale for like 7 years, and I got the chance to build out some of the more mature infrastructure of a growing company beyond the Series A. I think by the time I stepped out, they'd raised about $30 million or so for the two companies. And so I was able to build out the HR systems, build out the teams for both companies. We did several SBIR grants. We built a building. I was investor relations for all of our companies. So I got to experience quite a lot of company building through that. But I would say my specialty has really become the 0 to Series A, and that's that's right where you are. Just to talk about these companies a little bit, OrthoHelix is a small bone implant company, orthopedic implant company. The premise of the company was very much a by surgeons, for surgeons premise, and it was for hand and foot and ankle and wrist surgery. We thought that company, given the economy at the time, was going to go public in a couple of years, as orthopedic companies did back then. The economy tanked, so it was acquired just last year by Tornier. But it was a very good outcome for everyone. We just had to be patient for it. So these products are on the market and growing worldwide. ViewRay is another innovative company. I wrote their Series A business plan, and what they are doing is MRI-guided radiotherapy for cancer treatment. So this makes real-time imaging possible for the treatment of cancer. A real breakthrough. When we wrote the Series A business plan, I think they thought they would need about $10 million and would not have any regulatory hurdles. That was the thinking in the beginning. So that company, just 10 years later, have just started treating their first patients under FDA approval, and I think they've raised about $80 million. But it's still, it's still a great success. It just is kind of funny how you think it's going to look like when you first start, putting the business together, and how it may turn out in the end. Optima Neuroscience, that was actually the neurotechnology company that we ended up creating with that professor that I had that first job with there at the university, Dr. Chris Sakalaris. What he has is seizure prediction technology based on EEG signal. And so we were able to form a company with him, and that was acquired by a local company there in Gainesville that was kind of in the same business. Logics, that was not even a medical technology company, but it was developed by a biomedical engineering professor. And so he used chaotic logic in heart devices and some other sort of pacemaker devices, and ended up creating a computer chip that is based on chaotic logic. And so I wrote the business plan for that, and I don't even know what's inside a computer, but I learned real quick. So the market potential for that type of technology is well over 300 billion, or that's what it was back when I wrote the plan. Because this could be a chip that's in anything that needs a computer chip, because it can be reprogrammed on the fly. And so Exhale is based on a platform of technologies out of the University of Florida around detecting things in our exhaled breath, so replacing diagnostic tests with exhaled breath. High Green is kind of using the same sensor technology for hand hygiene monitoring in hospitals. Engage Patient, that is a health IT play, and that's on sort of the electronic health records. So it was part of the very beginning of that, and that's venture funded now. And so TrueMotion Spine is my most recent, and this is just, I'm just going to focus on this recent company for a minute, just to kind of give you the detail on what we do in the 0 to Series A. And what we've done with TrueMotion, you can see there on the left, in 2011 when I met the inventor, that was his patent, and that's a disc replacement product. What we do is we have a total disc replacement device for the spine, so instead of fusing the spine, we simply replace the damaged discs, like we replace knees or hips. And so, as you see, that's a very complex product. It's got ball bearings, several hundred parts, and it was just on paper. So what we did is we tried to fail and fail fast, and we tested the things that would have made it fail. We got surgeon and biomechanical input to the process. We boiled down the device to 3 manufacturable parts from FDA cleared materials. So it's very manufacturable, it's very safe in the way that it's constructed. We put it into the computer analysis, so it has good data that shows that it won't blow up in use in the human body. We also did a freedom to operate, a FTO, just to make sure our patents would stand up to the competition. And we have our full development and business plan. So we've been pitching the Series A, and on this package versus on the patent, that we had in the beginning. And we bootstrapped it in the beginning until we had kind of what they're working on now is that investable package of the vision and the opportunity and what we're going to address, with the money. So that's basically kind of, what we do in the 0 to Series A and what I've been doing for 10 years. And I just have to say it's been really interesting and exciting, and I couldn't have predicted, how interesting it would have been. So, and hopefully financially successful. So.
Great. Question?
Thank you so much. We enjoyed your presentation. Could you expound on what exactly is 0 to Series A?
Sure. I would say 0 is you have an idea, right? And Series A is usually it's usually around $1 million to $5 million, and it's usually your first real outside money round. All of these technologies at minimum would take $5 million. A lot of them will take $50 million or more. So you're pitching a lot. Sue, my friend who you just heard from, she's raised over $80 million. She had to go out and raise $40 million, then she raised another $40 million, and then she had to do the road shows to go public to raise, another $50 million. So these types of technologies take millions and millions of dollars, and they're very risky. So the Series A is it's a big milestone. I feel like, in my experience, that's the hardest money to raise, is that first outside money.
What's the average equity that you guys, that your companies have given up on a Series A round?
That's a great question. And you can find on the internet lots of pie charts and examples. There's a law firm up in North Carolina that does a report every year on what's kind of common, how to split up the equity. In general, 12 to 20% is what you'd like to be able to sell that equity, for that amount. Of course, it's a valuation question, so you have to be able to support that your company is worth enough that their $2 million is representative of 20% of the total value. Yeah, if you start giving away more than 50%, you lose control, and if it's enough to make sure the company's going to succeed, that's one thing, but for a couple $1 million, when you know you need to raise 10 or 20 and give up control that early is not ideal.
In something like this true motion cervical disc, does this involve the Food and Drug Administration testing?
Yes, it does, and that has been our challenge. That's a great question. It's called a PMA process that this has to go through. So you're talking about, in the U.S., about 300 to 500 patients that would be followed for 2 to 3 years to get approval, and it's very, very, very expensive. And so what our plan is, like all the others before us, is to launch in Europe, where you just have to show safety, whereas in the U.S. you have to show safety, efficacy, and increasingly cost efficiency. So yes, that's been our main challenge in raising the money.
Any more questions? I have one at the end, by the way.
Thank you. It was a great presentation. For your Series A, what kind of sales, if any, were there, amount of money-wise, and then product-wise? Have you had already products that you could, minimum viable product?
On all of these, let me just think back here a minute. At Series A, none of these had revenue. No, none of them had revenue. And many of them, Exhale, we're almost 10 years in, just starting to get revenue now. A lot of these companies in the medical technology space or the pharma space, and that's something we really work to support these companies in BioFlorida. There are years and years and years without revenue, and years where those years you need to raise millions and millions of dollars. So it's very hard to put a valuation on something that doesn't have revenue as well. So that's always a conversation.
Big one.
Yes.
Yes, could you share your experience on the return on your time and the return on your investment, if you've made any, in these companies?
That's a great question. I worked predominantly for equity, for my time. So I'm not from a wealthy family, so I don't think I've invested cash in any of these, but I have founding stock in all of these companies. OrthoHelix has had a good exit, and I will say for writing the business plan, it's probably 10 to 15 times what someone would pay you to write a business plan. And Optima Neuroscience, that was like a base hit. That wasn't one of those big home runs. We hadn't really had a big home run yet, but Optima, we're getting little royalty streams. So, there's some passive income on the backside. However, all of these are potential IPO, or they're all potential $300 million companies. So, my goal was just to get as much equity as I could, and they're all getting very mature now, as you can see from the timeline. And it's out of my hands at this point, right? So that's the scary thing. I think what a lot of people like to do as they're investing is keep participating in each round so they don't get diluted. But if you've got founder stock and the control of the company and the people in the company move on, you just hope for the best.
One question on valuation. You must be a magician in convincing 10-year out revenues and giving away 10%, 15% of equity. You talked about the Charlotte-based law firm providing the startup valuation, right?
Right.
Could you provide that link to Sandy or for the team to distribute?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they have reports that they post online available. It's called Hutch Law, Fred Hutchison, Hutch Law up in the Research Triangle Park.
Okay. Right after Hutch.
Thank you. One more question, and of course I'm going to greet into one too.
This is a personal question. Do you hold the stock in your Roth IRA?
No.
You should. The richest IRA that I know of is owned by the guy that ran for president last year, or against Obama, and he had over $120 million, Mitt Romney, because he put stock on all of the risky deals in his 401 or his IRA. So he valued, it's a huge upside.
Interesting. Yeah, I know some of our investors had us work through their IRA or 401ks.
You should personally.
Okay, and then my question
As
was,
long as I can spend it on gas when it comes in.
and I think my question was kind of touched upon a little bit in the different answers, but knowing that you worked on FDA-required technologies, what did you have to present to the investors so they know to wait those 10 years and know that their risk was low? How did you do that?
That's a targeting question. And that's been a challenge too, that early money is sometimes, friends and family, friends, fools and family, and you'll meet people in the real estate or the restaurant business that are very excited about what you're doing. And you have to kind of do some soul searching. If you'll tell them, you say, here's the FDA path, here's the path to revenues, here are the risks. But if they are not personally or have experience with it or really understand it, they might be surprised and angry later when they finally figure it out what you were talking about. And so it's a risk to take money from people that really have no idea what you're doing, even if they get excited about you or your technology. That can be risky because some of these things have very unique risk factors.
All right, very good. Thank you. Let's give her a big hand of applause.